If everyone could please take their seats so we can start this public meeting for the Underline.
Extra cards that I can, when I take them, I can give them right to the county, so they'll like that one time. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Keith Fernandez. I'm a member of the Young Professionals organization of the Underline. It's my honor to be here and to moderate this meeting. So anything that goes wrong, the fault does lie with the moderator. So this is an incredible project. It's a 30% design, and we have a great group of people tonight. We're going to have Commissioner Xavier Suarez from Miami-Dade County, Director Alice Bravo, Meg from the Commissioner Carrero's office, representing different departments. We have people from Transit, Parks, and City of Miami staff, but most importantly, we have you, the residents. So, I'm not big on long introductions, so I'm going to give it over to Commissioner Xavier Suarez, who is Miami-Dade County's commissioner for this area, and also the first Cuban-American elected mayor in the city of Miami, graduated from Harvard Law, and an all-around smart guy. So, Commissioner Suarez.
Typically in a situation like this, what they'd like to have is a young, energetic, charismatic commissioner. Since my son couldn't be here till a little later on, they invited me. So I was telling the architects here about some of the great speeches that I've heard in my entire life, and they were all by architects. So welcome to you again, and those that conceived of the idea. By the way, just to sort of drop some names, I did get to hear Buckminster Fuller at Harvard, and Louis Kahn in Philadelphia at Rosemont. So anyhow, I think if I had to do it over again, I would have been an architect, not just a humble mechanical engineer and a part-time commissioner. And when Meg Daly told me about the Underline, and she started throwing out some numbers, I said, I don't think this is realistic, but as you'll hear later on today, it has become very realistic, and by way of introduction of my son, who's going to be here, I think in a little bit over an hour, I think the city of Miami is now committed to $50 million from impact fees. And of that amount, I have my notes from my assistant. And I know that of that amount, I think close to $5 million, Valerie, where's Valerie? $5.8 million has already come in from just one project. 5 from one project. And so, as we develop the rest of the transit-oriented projects on US 1, because most of the Underline is in my district, and thankfully, there's a total of 4 transit-oriented projects along the Underline, and all of them, we're negotiating with all of them to make contributions that are voluntary in quotes to the project. The total of those developments, I think, is close to $1 billion. So 27, both sides of 37th, ponds, and I'm forgetting one. South Miami, right. So I think that this is going to be a reality, and a lot of the credit goes to Meg and to all of you who from day one said that this could be done, and our city is going to become a city that is pedestrian and bike friendly. Our Director of Transportation and Public Works, isn't that nice? We finally kind of brought together 2 departments that really belong together. So when you want to complain about things not getting done right in transportation, Alice Bravo will be there. So I just want to tell you that this has been a dream come true. I think a lot of the credit, if not most of the credit, belongs to Meg, and she tends to show up a lot of times with a guy that's named Parker Thompson. It took me a little while to figure out that was her dad. So Parker Thompson and I go way back. In any case, when I first came to Miami, he actually offered me a job with Paul and Thompson. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to be a small part of this. The county did contribute, I think last year, I'm sure Alice is going to tell you more about that, with about $3 million in impact fees. And we've also helped at the legislative level Remember that Dade County delegation has a lot of clout. So, Meg, when you run out of steam with our lobbyists and some of our other public officials, remind me and Valerie to make a few calls to Tallahassee, and we'll get things done. So, congratulations to all of you again.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Suarez. And now I have the pleasure of introducing somebody who knows infrastructure, who knows transit, who is the expert. I've got on this paper the millions and billions and bajillions of dollars she's managed in different things, but who has the incredible title of Director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works. So something to aspire to for those of us who are still climbing. Director Allen.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. This public meeting is very important for the county as well as for the Underline group. And we're going to be talking about the Brickell Backyard Design Proposal for Phase 1, which is the segment of the Underline between the Miami River and Coral Way. And, you know, this project is I think, a true example of how wonderful a collaboration you could have on a public project between Miami-Dade County and the Friends of the Underline. They've had great ideas, and at the end of the day, working together, we're going to help improve mobility in Miami-Dade County, and especially attract attention to transit and the benefits of using transit, and also take this facility, which has this space underneath that's completely underutilized, and turn it into a recreational area that everyone in our community can enjoy. So our department, the Department of Transportation and Public Works, is leading the county agency effort on this project, and we're collaborating with our Parks Department and as well as our Cultural Affairs Department, which is, as everybody knows, has an Art and Public Places program. And we're all going to work together with the Friends of the Underline to make this project a reality. So here we have Irene Hegedus. Please stand up. For this project within the Department of Transportation and Public Works, and she is our Chief of Transportation Enhancements, and I can't think of a better enhancement for transit in Miami-Dade County than the Underline project. So we're moving at a fast clip. Meg and the Friends have done a great job of securing funding commitments, so we want to make sure that we get the feedback that we need from the community as the design is developed, so that we can move quickly into final design and project implementation. So a big element of everything that we're doing in this project is addressing the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, and we also want to give residents options of better accessing public transit. So the easier it is to get to, the easier it is to use, the more enjoyable it is while you're there, where we're going to be more successful in increasing our ridership. So our Mayor Carlos Jimenez is very, very supportive of this effort and helped identify the funding for this initial segment. And he has told us that this is a top priority project for us to work on and help implement the Underline everywhere in Dade County. So we're moving forward with Phase 1 implementation, which is the Brickell Backyard, and we're working diligently to potentially start construction all of this year. So that's going to require everyone's input, and we will move forward quickly. So we're also beginning the design of the trail connections at different locations along certain roadways that hopefully we will initiate the construction of those in 2018. And with that, we'll get on with the program.
Thank you, Director Bravo. And I forgot to mention Francisco Garcia from the city, but now it's my pleasure to also introduce to you from James Corner Field Operations, the two people who will be doing this great presentation, Isabel Castilla and Lisa Switkin.
Great, thank you. We're so excited to be here. And just make sure that I can forward. Okay, some of you who have been to a couple of the public meetings we've had here before, we're going to be passing around a number of comment cards. You may already have them. If you don't, you can raise your hand if you have a question. And there's a number of volunteers write down as you're listening to the presentation any comments you have, any questions you have, and then we're going to have a Q&A at the end where we'll be going through some of those questions and hopefully answering your questions for you. Oh, okay, and we have one more speaker, I think, before we start the presentation. We'd like to invite the commissioner.
Good evening. Hello? Hello, can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of Commissioner Carollo. Unfortunately, due to a prior engagement, he couldn't join us tonight, but he does send his warmest salutations and me on his behalf. Additionally, he wanted me to express that we're excited and looking forward to the start of Phase 1, and our office is currently working on developing the first sector of the Underline and setting up a park that hopefully fulfills all the desires and the needs of our community. So thank you.
Okay, so Isabel and I are both going to do this presentation together. She's really going to go through most of the details. And I'm going to kind of start by just reminding everyone of some of the work that we did last year when we did the master plan and framework plan, and some of the things that we heard. So the first question is why we're here today. I think, as everyone has said, this is a really exciting moment because, about a year ago we were working on the framework plan and the master plan for 10 miles of the Underline, and we're here today to really talk about the first phase, which is half a mile long in Brickell. We call it the Brickell backyard, and we'll be going through the details of that. But it's a really exciting moment because the project is started. Just as a reminder, the Underline is 10 miles. It goes through 8 stations, 3 municipalities, but it is one line. I think the idea from the beginning was to actually create a connector of neighborhoods of the whole area, and this is something that's really important that it accomplishes, but it's also complicated because it does pass through so many different communities, neighborhoods, etc. The Underline is going to be a multimodal corridor, Miami's signature linear park, and an urban trail. But as part of the framework plan, we asked, what else can it be? What are the sort of larger aspirations for the project? In 2015, we had 3 sets of public meetings focusing on the different areas along the Underline. We asked all of you what you most wanted to see, what you were most sort of concerned about, your greatest aspirations, etc. And we started to mark those down into a plan that consisted of a number of different layers and elements. There were 7 goals that were really highlighted at the end of the master plan phase. One was the idea of creating a multimodal corridor with designated paths. So the idea is that currently the Underline exists. It's really what was called the M path, the maintenance path. It's used for shared use, but to actually create a multimodal corridor that is really for both pedestrians as well as cyclists. 2 was establishing a green corridor that was really inspired by the historic native communities of the area to make something that was lush and green and shaded. 3 was locating programmatic nodes or neighborhood open space amenities, the idea that people would actually come to use the Underline in different ways, whether it was with their families, whether it was for exercise, whether it was to come see a performance or actually eat food, etc. 4 was improving intersections. For those of you who know the Underline today, there are a number of areas that are actually pretty hairy, and the idea is to look at all of the intersections, designate which ones need major improvement, minor improvement, to create a more seamless corridor. Number 5 is connecting to the larger trail network. This is a really important piece because this 10 miles actually connects to the larger region. Once it's complete, the idea is you can actually bike from downtown Miami all the way to the Florida Keys. Number 6 was developing guidelines for transit-oriented development. So this is a great opportunity to have synergistic development around the corridor that actually benefits the Underline park itself. And 7 was the idea of using the Underline as a framework for art curated through Miami-Dade County Art and Public Places. The idea that this could actually be seen as one of the longest outdoor galleries. As part of the framework plan, we also then sort of decided to locate 3 different layers. And these layers, for clarity, just so that we can go through the different elements, as really paths and intersections, planting and habitat, and then a series of character zones. So in terms of the multimodal corridor, the idea was separating cyclists and pedestrians, establishing clear paths at the stations, especially where now they're quite blurred, and encouraging alternate modes of travel to cars. So the idea is that, I love all the cyclists on the Underline say that they actually want to be seen by people driving on the highway next way because they're actually going faster than them. And it would actually encourage people to use the Underline more. So this is showing the existing path now, which is a sort of multi-use path. It's narrow, it's shared, and it's about 7 to 10 feet wide. Sorry for that for you. The future paths, you can see there's 2 of them. The idea is that one is designated for cyclists. This is a wider path. It's actually now going to be the recommended width for medium to heavy 2-way off-road bike use. And then there's also a pedestrian path that would be separate, dedicated for pedestrians or for people who are using rollerblades, other types of things. This diagram shows sort of inventory of all the different intersections along the line, and they were separated. You probably can't see all of them from back there, but there's a number of different types, whether they were major improvements, which were about 5, medium improvements, which were about 7, and then minor improvements, which were about the remaining 24 intersections. And the idea of realigning the path, creating tabled crossings, and doing other sort of grade separated crossings in order to improve connections in the corridor itself. The overall planting strategies, the idea was to create a continuous green corridor that was inspired by the native pine rockland and hardwood hammock ecologies here in Florida. In addition to that, to retain the existing healthy and established trees that are on site, to enrich some of the creek ecologies where the Underline passes over rivers and creeks, and then to minimize maintenance by selecting plants that are well suited to the existing bedrock and climate. So thinking about drought-tolerant species, and then in some areas create sort of special garden experiences that enhance not only ecology but wildlife, such as butterfly gardens. And together, the idea for the full line was that it was about 70% of recreation in nature, 7 miles, when you're going on the full journey, you sort of feel that you're in a natural setting. And then along that path, along that journey, there's 30% or so, right, of destinations, places where you can stop, where you can go, etc. So you can use it as both a park, as a trail, as a journey, and everything in between. And these are some of the images from the master plan showing the different sort of destinations or places along it. A river room, a gym, an oolite room, a place for children's nature play, an outdoor gallery, the sort of typical Underline experience where it's a path, a bridge, and then a sort of room where you can exercise at the very end there. This was the map that we were talking about at the beginning, just showing the Underline in context as a central spine in the network of regional trails and how it is a sort of key connector. When some of these trails are complete, some of them are proposed, but the idea that Miami could actually be truly interconnected and become a much more pedestrian and cycle-friendly place. The other thing that we wanted to remind people is just that this is really a transformative project for mobility and sustainability. And it's been not only sort of conceived of that way, but people are starting to recognize it for that as well. These are just a sampling of some of the awards that have been sort of already In addition, there's been a lot of sort of grassroots and on-the-ground activities that are starting to generate enthusiasm and get people excited about the potential and the possibility of the Underline being even more than it is today. And these are just some of the events, working with artists in the community to really create a space there and get people to really realize and get excited about what it can be. So the first piece, why Brickell, why now? I think as we sort of look around, it's sort of very evident that Brickell is a place that is developing very rapidly. And as all of this development is happening, there is an even greater need for open space. And so starting at this point seemed to us the perfect place to begin, not only because it's a sort of natural terminus or beginning of the Underline that currently is not very legible, but because it's actually creating an amenity in one of the places that needs it the most. So Isabel's going to introduce you to the Brickell backyard, which is the first half of a mile, and that's the pink part on the map and the area that we're going to go into detail today. I'll turn it over to Isabel.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I am managing a multiplicity of presentations now. If you wonder what we're all both doing here, these presentations actually being broadcasted in Tallahassee to our partners over there. So that's why we have so many things running. So you can see how important the Underline is in the larger context of Florida as well. But as we mentioned, we are starting on the Brickell backyard. And a very important aspect of our work as designers is to listen to what you, the community, the day-to-day users of the park want, and to design to that so that in a way we are designing your space and a space you can embrace and use with your families. When we met with some of you in 2015, we did a series of interactive boards to understand what were the thematics that were relevant to the different populations of the area. And if you see on the first board above and below, yellow was for Brickell, blue and pink were used for other communities. And in particular, Brickell told us very specific ideas. They were interested in ecology and natural habitats in ways in which the Underline could bring a green and verdant space to a very developed portion of Miami. They were interested in arts and culture, bringing those elements out to the public space so that they could be enjoyed by a variety of different communities. And they were also interested in health and fitness, in enjoying that outdoor space as a way to connect with the outdoors, but also to improve health. We also asked Brickell what were the uses that they would value the most out of their backyard. And we heard to enjoy nature, to enjoy art, and to also experience restaurants and cafes. So based on those thoughts, we've developed the Brickell backyard designs. We also had asked you back in 2015, what were the things that you would like to see as part of the big Brickell backyard? And this is a map where everybody sketched their ideas. We will be asking you to do something very similar at the end of this meeting, so keep this in mind. But if you see here on some of the aspects that we have outlined from the map, we've heard that there's an interest in basketball courts, handball courts, racquetball courts. There's interest in a bike station, shared bike repairs. There's also someone quoted the idea of the Underline being Brickell's living room and civic space. So we really took all of these ideas to heart because again, for us, the design of Brickell is for you and it needs to be used by you. So as we looked at Brickell, you can see here the extent of this first phase of the Underline. It goes from the Miami River all the way on the right-hand side of the page to Coral Way or Southwest 13th Street all the way on the left-hand side. In total, this is half a mile of work, and it's one of the most complicated areas of the Underline because different from the south part of the Underline, where on one side we have US 1 and on the other side we have development or communities, here we're almost in a traffic median surrounded by streets on both sides. So the design is quite critical for us that it's intended to be a porous design, but that also provides a lot of amenities for you, the residents of this area. So together with Friends of the Underline, we developed a program here that's organized as what we call a procession of rooms. a series of unique spaces that provide those amenities we heard you needed the most. Starting from the river south, we are proposing a dog park between the Miami River and Southwest 7th Street. This image here, you'll notice, has an X, only because the funding right now does not allow us to build it at the same time as of everything else. However, we did want to tell you that we are committed to bringing that dog park because we did hear that's a very highly needed amenity.
And if there's any donors here in the room who really wants to donate one, we're accepting offers as well.
Between Southwest 7th and Southwest 8th, the area in orange is what we're calling the gym. This is a space for outdoor exercise with a basketball court that we'll be presenting in more detail coming up. Between Southwest 8th and Southwest 10th is what we're calling the promenade. It's one of the areas that has the most activity at Brickell. We have buses, trolleys, metro station users, metro mover users, people coming east and west, and it's a space where really the entire community can gather. Further down the line, the navy blue area is what we're calling the bike lot, Miami's first bicycle parking garage, with amenities that will really encourage that idea of the Underline to mix public transportation with cycling along the corridor. And finally, between Southwest 11th and 13th, the Oolite Room, a very unique space today with an exposed Oolite outcrop that is so distinctive of Miami that we really want to celebrate and make into a special place. In terms of the plan, we are locating the bicycle path on the west side of the street, so this dark navy line is our bicycle path, starting from 13th Street, moving on to the river, and keeping it as straight as possible, keeping in mind we are also dodging a lot of existing conditions that we need to ensure the bicycle and pedestrians are very safe through the path. The lighter blue path is the pedestrian, basically someone that's a little more malleable that can move through all of these obstacles and still create a very safe, enjoyable journey throughout. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through every space, starting at the river and moving south and showing you images of what the different Brickell backyard rooms will look like. So starting at the river, we have it here all the way on the right hand side of the image. We're providing the bicycle path that basically connects Southwest 7th to the river. And if you'll see on the top of the page, this bicycle path turns to what will be west to connect to the rest of the Miami River Walk that exists and connects up to Southwest 2nd Street. In the future, we would like this path to also extend to the east, connecting to Southwest Miami area. However, right now we're not showing that because there isn't a connection at this point. So we're investing our money on the areas that really matter, that make those connections, not foregoing that in the future we will also create those areas. Between Southwest 7th and Southwest 8th is what we're planning, calling it the gym. And this is a very unique space that we heard from a lot of you will be highly used. It's an area that will host a basketball court. This is a regulation-sized basketball court that fits very neatly between the two Metro Rail columns. On the left-hand side of the page, that building there is an existing building, the transmission building, which we do need to keep. But it's something that actually allows for this special space to be very nestled within that very awkward condition. The basketball court will be surrounded by a path, a running track you see in darker green where it says run, that really brings you into the basketball court and allows you to activate the space with an area where you can warm up before a game or actually introduce that as part of your day-to-day exercise along the Underline. Along this lower part here, where we see these trees, we're proposing exercise equipment similar to what we see now at Brickell, and some stretching and climbing bars for also warm-up exercises. This is the plan of the space, and along Southwest First Court, we'll have a bicycle path running through with a planted buffer and a sidewalk, and a large sidewalk on Southwest First Avenue. This is the view of the area as it looks today. In the background, we see the Miami River and the two columns. This is an area where there's a lot of dirt right now, very underutilized. And what it could be tomorrow when we actually incorporate this beautiful basketball court with very vibrant underlined green colors and really provide an opportunity not only for those that play basketball to meet new friends, create new teams, but also to activate the space as you're walking by to really stop and see different activities that are occurring at the same time.
One of the things I think that's also great about the surface for basketball is that it's essentially a multi-use surface, so it could actually be used for different types of things. When it's not being used for a game, you could have a small performance there and other types of things as well.
This is the design for the fence around the basketball court, and for us it was very important that this is not just a fence but also something that speaks to the idea of creating a unique environment for the Underline. Therefore, the structure of the fence is an upside down U for the Underline, painted green of the same colors, and so will the mesh in the fence, a chain link mesh vinyl coated in green. If you see here, the running path actually brings you in and the fence overlaps. So you actually don't see a gate, but you see a generous entry that takes you into the gym and invites you to activate the space. These are the designs for the fence. As you can see, it's 14 feet in height, preventing balls from going onto the street as people are playing. And we will be introducing not only the Underline logo, but the unique idea of, get to the next one. The idea of calling these spaces something special, the you gym, your gym, something that you can really embrace as part of the community. Here we see one of the other areas around the gym. This is the area with the outdoor exercise equipment located in a linear fashion along the running path, but also under the shade of new trees that will provide very much needed coolness for this particular area in Miami. And lastly, the area with the climbing bars and stretching bars. What you see on the background is Southwest 8th Street. So this is an area where you can exercise, stretch, but also have extra space for potential yoga classes, Pilates, CrossFit, all different events that Friends of the Underline is planning today and that will have their house here at the Underline Gym. These are some of the equipments that we're proposing, and some of the surveys that you have here are asking you to let us know what you prefer, what you would use the most, what you would use the least. So that can really help us calibrate exactly what would be the type of exercise and the type of offerings that we can give so that we ensure the gym is well used. The second space along the Brickell backyard is what we're calling the promenade. And this is located between Southwest 8th Street, which is all the way on the right-hand side of the page, up to Southwest 10th Street. This area here is the main entry to the metro rail. And the main interest in designing this space is to create a social promenade with a variety of rooms that can really activate the space, provide a location for families to come out, but at the same time, deal with the multiplicity of circulations that we have here. We have bus bays on both sides of the road, on Southwest 1st Avenue and 1st Court. We have trolleys. We have a lot of people coming out of the metro station. We have a lot of people crossing east-west. So in order to accommodate all of these different flows of circulation, what we're doing is that we're bringing the bicycle path to the center of the columns and surrounding it by planting beds so that we avoid having people accidentally step into the path when they're not looking. Flanking the path are a series of rooms that will provide those very unique spaces and activation throughout the day. All the way on the right-hand side is the U stage. This will be a flexible platform for concerts after work, for magic shows during Saturdays, with a plaza in front of it that can really accommodate people gathering to see those events. That end of the promenade will also be flanked by an amenity kiosk, a space where we hope to invite different people to sell food or drinks. And also part of the survey that you have here is asking you what kind of concession would you like to see? Would you like to see coffee, beverages, sandwiches, sushi? We want to know what you would like to see so we can actually ensure this space is well used. Moving further along, we have the area that we're calling the playroom. And this is a fun, flexible space for families. We know a lot of new families are moving to the Brickell backyard. So what we have here is a painted hopscotch, basically as part of the crosswalk, and then that eventually grows into a space with bigger blocks for kids to play with, surrounded by a sitting wall where parents can sit and watch the kids. Directly above that is what we're calling the Porsche, which is an area with a swing set that can allow you to have a nice, refreshing moment as you're waiting for your bus, or an area where families can also come out and play and activate the space. Further along the line, we have the game room. This is a space in inspired a lot in bringing in some of the culture of Calle Ocho, which is coming right to the space, and bringing in that idea of gathering in a public space to play dominoes, cards, chess, something that's very old school and unique of the Cuban community, of the Miami community, that can find a place here, both for those traditionalists, but also for new up-and-coming millennials to mix in with that culture. It's also an area that's flexible, so we can also use these tables and chairs just to bring your work out to the Underline or to eat lunch in the middle of the workday. Lastly, on the bottom here is what we call the dining room. This is a space that's going to have a 50-foot long table for communal dining and lunch during the day-to-day, but also an opportunity that as a family you can actually come out here and celebrate a birthday party on a Saturday. So really this becomes Brickell's living room, Brickell's promenade for people watching, and a space that will be quite activated and provide a room for all the new families of Brickell to come to. In front of the station, we're proposing to keep the existing grove of trees, but also again activated by adding another concession kiosk that creates a bookend to the one on the other end. So always this Brickell area will have a lot of activity. So these are the plans for the space. And now I'm going to walk you through a series of views so you see what these spaces look like. So what we have here is a view looking south. On the left-hand side of the image, we have Southwest First Court, a wide sidewalk and bus base, but not a lot of activity. And what it could be tomorrow when we actually redo this space, incorporate the bicycle path surrounded by lush planting. You can see the idea of the stage on the left-hand side. After work, people can come here, gather, and really activate and enjoy the Brickell backyard. This image here is what we're calling the playroom. You see in the background the hopscotch area, and then the bigger blocks that create the play space. We are dealing with a very limited space, so there's not enough space to provide a proper playground. But with this idea, we really see a place where kids can actually play with their imagination and use it in a way that can be quite creative. Kids really, in the end, don't need anything that tells them play here. They need something that they can actually explore and have fun with. This next image is showing the dining room, so that idea of the 50-foot long table that will be steel with some fixed seating that allows for different groups to gather and meet and socialize as a communal space. In the middle, we see the pedestrian path, and then on the right-hand side, the bicycle path. The next image is the porch. Again, this idea of this swing inspired in, usually tropical architecture, where you always have this area where you sit, swing, and see the world go by. Having that in the middle of the Brickell backyard where you can wait for your bus and also enjoy this fun type of seating. The next space, the game room. We can see here the individual game tables and the sidewalk along Southwest First Court with the bus base. And then lastly, the station plaza. In this image, the station's behind you. This is what you see as you come out. And how can we really make this a unique space by opening the views and encouraging people to move north into the rest of the promenade? You see on the right-hand side of the image the kiosk and movable tables and chairs that will really activate the room at all times of the day. This is a design for the seat walls. As you've noticed, the promenade is lined with a number of seat walls, and if you know the space very well today, there's quite a lot of those. So what we want to do is part from that, understanding there's a lot of need for seating, but create a more exciting and different type of seating, combining areas with concrete walls, areas with seats, with backs and armrests, looking in different ways, so that we really provide a space for everyone to sit down. These are some of the designs for the spaces that we just spoke to. The game tables on the top left, the playroom with the hopscotch, the 50-foot long dining table, and the swing. And then the idea of the kiosks. These would be unique Underline kiosks, small but big enough to provide all sorts of different offerings, the movable tables and chairs. The next space, moving south from the promenade, is what we're calling the bike lot, which will be Miami's first big bicycle parking garage. And if you guys know this space, this here is the bus turnaround. All the way on the right-hand side is the metro station, and here's the metro mover. This is a space right now that's very dark. It's full of dirt. There's a a lot of chickens there, and it's really unactivated, and a lot of people walk through it, but it's a missed opportunity to do something special. So what we're planning to do here is create a large bicycle parking lot that will really create a lot of much needed space and encourage that usage of bicycles and public transportation. The Metro Mover ramp is right here, so if you wanted to get on the Metro Mover or the Metro Rail with your bike, this is the perfect location to make that connection. The bike lot will have 52 new bike parking spaces. It will have a space for a shared bike station, similar to a city bike or a deco bike. And it will also have areas for bicycle repair, which will have pumps for your tires, different wrenches to tighten up your wheels, so that it really becomes a hub for all of the bicycle culture that we want to encourage along the corridor. The path in the middle is a pedestrian path. This is Southwest First Avenue over here, and Southwest First Court over there with the bicycle path running through. These are the plans of the space. And one of the key things that we're very excited about is to use this space to actually capitalize on the idea of the Underline as this unique corridor that encourages alternative transportation and mobility. So we will be placing a large Underline sign that also doubles as a bicycle parking space. And at night, this can really become a great display for the whole Underline corridor. This view here is showing you another view of this area. This is Southwest First Court here with the bicycle path and the pedestrian path running through. And one of the things you'll notice in this view, if you're familiar with the space, is that it's quite sloped. So one of the things that we're doing with the bicycle parking is that we're actually terracing it so that we're dealing with the slope. You're parking your bike in a flat surface. But by doing this also, we're increasing visibility of the bicycles so that we deal with some of the concerns we have heard from you about activation, visual connection, safety, and prevention of vandalism. So this is one of the means on how we do that. And then these are some of the furnishings that we're using: a bike rack that will be painted Underline green, the bike repair station where you have a variety of tools and a tire pump, and then also the unique Underline signage that serves as a bicycle space. Further south from this area, we have the Metro Mover station, and the Underline gets pinched around here between the Metro Mover and Southside Park. However, we're working in close collaboration with Southside Park to ensure that these two spaces can actually be fluid and create a larger amenity space. As we move further south, we then enter the Oolite room, which is that unique Oolite outcrop that we have today that's quite exciting, but a little bit underplayed. These are the views with the current impact running through and that Oolite outcrop. And what it could be tomorrow when we actually enhance that outcrop with native vegetation that is basically what grows there. We make it into these beautiful gardens and actually bring in more Oolite stone that can serve as areas for sitting, areas for children to play with, and really make that a unique space. You'll also notice in the columns a series of text areas. These are areas that we can actually use to speak about Oolite being a unique geology of Miami and teach not only the people of Brickell, but also tourists around the area what makes this space unique and why is it so special to Miami. So as part of all of this, we also have a series of design elements that compose the rest of the park. The materials for the path will be a light color asphalt that minimizes heat gain. And on the shoulders we're exploring a porous material that would ensure that water moves quickly on rain events. On the main promenades and sitting areas, we're exploring to do a mix of Oolite stone with salt rock finished concrete that also has a very similar texture to Oolite. So we're again celebrating that very unique area of Miami. And on the intersections and areas like the basketball court or living rooms, we're looking to paint them into very bright colors using either thermoplastic paint or acrylic surfaces. For lighting, we're looking to illuminate the entire path with a family of poles that, if you see on this image, actually have a variety of heads that can be added, with the idea that we can have one single type of pole through the entire corridor. If it's just a path, we can just have two lights. If it's the basketball court or if it's the living living rooms, we can add more to those to really ensure that the area is well illuminated and safe at night. This is a view of the Ulai room with these different lampposts. The great thing about this is that they can be aimed directly to the path. So if we have a residential area nearby, we ensure that light is not polluting those residential areas, but really pointed to the path and the areas we need to make safe. The other key and last thing of the Underline, as you all know if you've been following the process, is that the Underline has a very strong branding, a very strong iconic identity that we want to ensure not only stays in t-shirts or bags, but actually can be translated to the park. If we think about the 10 miles of the Underline, it's crossing a variety of communities, a variety of areas, some very dense, some not as dense, but it's important that the Underline is recognized throughout as this one linear, unique space. So to do that, what we're proposing is to have unique signage from the first column of the Underline in as you're crossing through an intersection. So you recognize immediately you are within the Underline. From the column out to the street, we will have the typical type of signage that you see around the streets of Miami. The signage will carry the same typography and colors that were originally established as part of the Underline branding, but translated into a series of stencils that can actually be spray painted onto the path or to the columns, ensuring that on a very low budget we actually have a very strong design identity through the entire space.
We just want to let people know we're probably about 5 minutes from the end, so if you do have questions to start collecting those cards now.
So as I mentioned, part of the idea for the signage is to actually incorporate it onto the columns of the Metro Rail, which are the consistent elements throughout. This signage will indicate the Underline entries, will allow you to find your way through whether you're heading south or downtown. It will provide information or interpretive signs that speak about the history of the region, the Mary Brickell founders, the Ulai room. How can we really speak about what makes each community of the Underline unique? We will also have distance markers for those that want to time their exercise, whether it's running, walking, or cycling. And we will also use the columns to indicate where one can find amenities, a coffee shop, a bicycle repair station. We also want some of these to be fun. So at the basketball court, we'll use words that actually encourage a funner way to engage the space. And lastly, if you all are familiar with the area, there's a lot of conduits and pipes coming down the columns of the Underline. So we're proposing to paint them green to reinforce that idea of how actually infrastructure can make a unique space for this area. So these are some of the examples, how we would place the word the Underline as you're approaching and marking the stations on the side of the Metro Rail structure. Placing signs on blocks adjacent or close to the Underline, helping people find their way to the park. And as I mentioned, taking those very unique conduits, painting them green, and really celebrating the infrastructural nature of the park that we're dealing with. The paths will also carry this unique type of signage. What we see here on the left-hand side is what you see normally on the streets. Type of signage that indicates a bicycle path, but that is designed for roads where people actually need elongated signs to be able to see and understand them from a traffic perspective. The Underline itself is off the road. It's a pedestrian and bicycle facility, so we want to incorporate some of those unique aspects of the signage onto the paths. Here we have your typical bicycle path that will separate the two lanes with a green marking with a custom tire mark in the middle. And we'll also be incorporating directional signage whether you're heading to Brickell or to Vizcaya. When two paths come together, the bike path and the pedestrian path, we'll be separating them with an Ulite strip that will keep each kind of mode of transportation on either side. They're both ample and wide enough to accommodate the flow of people that we expect. And when we are crossing perpendicularly, when we have pedestrians crossing the bike path, it's also very important that everybody's aware from either direction. So we'll be placing big areas in green, as you'll see on the plan that we have here, to ensure both pedestrians and cyclists are aware of each other. At intersections, We're also ensuring that everybody has their space and a clear alignment as the path crosses the intersection, so you can see when it's time to cross. In green, we have the bicycle crossing mark aligned with the bicycle path at the same way. And in white, your typical pedestrian crossing at the same path and alignment with the pedestrian crossing. So in summary, that is where we are with the design of Brickell. This is the moment where we do want to hear your opinion about these spaces, and in particular about the details of the spaces, which is what the survey that you have asked you. What types of concessions would you like to see? What types of exercise equipment would you like to see? So we ensure that this is a space for you. So to summarize, part of the spaces of the Brickell backyard will be the gym, the promenade, the bike lot, and the Ulai room. So what we're going to do now is we have volunteers with Underline t-shirts collecting cards. They will sort through the cards, and we're going to have a panel here that will answer the questions the moderator will read to us from the cards. After the Q&A session, we have a big plan of the design over on that table, and we want to ask you to give us your opinion on the spaces you like the most. So we'll have volunteers with Sharpie pens. Please feel free to write straight onto the plan. And finally, I don't want to leave this presentation without acknowledging our partners on the project. We are James Corner Field Operations, the landscape architects, but we also are working with a large group of experts that are helping make this up-to-date, amazing park for you. Kimley Horn, our civil and traffic engineers, HLB Lighting, who is sitting right here, who did the beautiful lighting design, Pentagram over here, doing the graphics, CMS, who's our cost estimator. We're also working with Fairchild Tropical Botanical Garden on the planting, and James Urban, where are you, over there, handling our trees and soils. Finally, as you know, we also would like to thank our clients for allowing us the opportunity to work on this amazing project. Friends of the Underline, in partnership with the Miami-Dade Transportation and Public Works Department and the Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation and Open Spaces Department. So thank you all, and we look forward to it.
Thank you very much for that. And now we're going to transition. I know that we're collecting comment cards with questions. If anyone has any questions they have not yet submitted, feel free to bring it to that gentleman there in the white underline shirt. In the meantime, I also wanted to mention that this week is completely required for the Coastal State Historic Highway designation in compliance with requirements for the Division of Historical Resources. That's a mouthful. And Jimmy's available up here in the white to answer any questions regarding the Coastal State Historic Highway that anyone might have. So, any questions about Coastal? There's a now. So, in the meantime, again, thank you for those questions. I'd like to call Meg Daly and Irene Hedges so we can begin the panel. And we can get the lights raised a little bit. Someone else have to do that? Oh, okay, well, let me see if that's part of the format.
First of all, I want to point out, I want to understand, one thing I said earlier, and I'm going to say it on the part of the format. No one is for qualified experience. People understand these stuff. That is one size fits all. I can tell you right now, and multiple different ways, like time to time, no, but there's no one that doesn't security, but number three, I have documentation to my parents in my own county. No one does. So before you want to come up with here, like the critical university.
Well, we can talk about that offline. Yeah.
You know, I'm here trying, I need to go to the if anyone should achieve this,
Well, absolutely.
I don't have to talk to the I have 5 dead friends.
Sir, you want to open the public comment part, or we can ask questions like everyone else? All right, so we are starting off with safety names. But first, let me get them to introduce themselves. I guess starting with Irene and on the left.
Testing.
Hello, my name is Irene. I'm the Chief of Information Enhancement from Miami-Dade County. Right now, I'm going to lead from the county perspective to help this project become a reality. We have great partners. I'm an architect by training. We're working on the permission.
My name is Meg Bailey, founder of the Underline, and I just want our volunteers to be recognized tonight. Without them, we would not be able to have this event. Here is our board members, and those who are board members, would you stand up? I know we have Roberto, we have Parker, we have Jesse. Can you give a round of applause?
I'm Lisa Swickman. I'm a senior principal at James Brickell Operations, the landscape architect leading the design of the project.
My name is Henry Scott. I'm a former associate of Pentagram Design, but I've come back in time to work on this. So I'm doing graphics design.
And I'm Isabel Castilla. I'm the principal in charge of the project. I'm following it from the beginning of the master plan. And we're looking forward to actually getting it on the map, implemented, and seeing all of you use it.
So our first question is about stormwater. The question is, will you be incorporating any stormwater infrastructure?
We are working very carefully to design the drainage off of that to actually drain onto the land for this. We will not be using irrigation as part of this project. So it's very important that we manage the storm water to use it to irrigate those plants in a very natural way. Also incorporating plants that can handle and filter the water as it goes into the subsoil, which for us is very important, that the design is not only beautiful, useful, but it's also very sustainable. So yes.
There are also areas, not necessarily in the Brickell backyard, but along the 10 miles where we are actually proposing water, rain gardens, things like that. And Isabel mentioned a number of porous surfaces as well that we've designed throughout the pathway. Because many times here you actually have too much water. So that will also help manage some of that.
All right, the next question is about the economy and design. How will tourists be encouraged to enjoy and participate in the Underline? Will there be a link for Bayside or a link to Port Cruises? So I guess it's maybe about transit and also kind of publicity.
Well, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is actually make the Underline much more legible as a public space. Part of that is working with Hamish on sort of identity and graphics, and all of the designs that we're doing sort of have a memorable, recognizable thing. And the other piece is really connecting it to the places where people are in Miami today. So if you are along the river, you can sort of find your way onto the Underline, and there's the idea that you actually have clear signage that gets you there. If you were downtown, this will sort of become part of your day-to-day journey in the city.
Another component is as part of the market, getting
safety and security of the Underline is the responsibility of the county of Lake. So I guess you're asking which agency will take care of safety and security or what group. And then the regular daily maintenance of the Underline, despite safety or apart from safety, is the responsibility of what group or agency.
Regarding developing working management agreement in which the first of the Underlines will get new contract with the management agency to provide the services. Right now it's under review by the Federal Transit Administration.
Okay, the next question is about construction, and it's how will transit be affected by construction of the Underline?
There's going to be goals, goal structure is going to keep your transit and traffic moving. You know, this is a great area, very traffic. But we need to achieve goal safety for the places today. We're planning on redoing some of the sidewalks, and we're doing the sidewalks, we will need for this. So there will be some structure. The structure is not only affecting the traffic or potentially the bus space. Like always, it's another time that we work with other sites. We know how to deal with traffic, and it's coordinated and planned, and then it is all
Great, the next question is on bikes, and this question says, will there be space located in the bike lot for a bike share station or maybe somewhere else for a bike share station?
In the call it bike garage, Miami-Dade counties first. There's space for bike share, bike repair, and Carlos Costas is still here, but he's looking at also at park share.
All right, next question is on shade. Will there be shade over the game room and the dining room? Is the dining room composed of metal? And would a metal composition of the dining room be useful to my AC?
One of the biggest challenges that we have with the Underline is that we still know we're under the material structure, and transit still needs to be able to access the structure to inspect it and ensure that it's safe. So we are limited in the types of trees that we can install to be able to still provide that access. That said, we are locating these amenity spaces under or close proximity to the canopy of existing trees, which in a way are the ones that actually provide the most shade because they're very mature. The material structure also in itself provides shade through different times of the day. So we're not looking at a very open space that we may look like on the fence, since we need to remove the structure to see it, but actually it's a space that does have a variety of shade through the day. In regards to the metal furniture, it will be powder coated with a material that actually prevents leaking. So I know immediately one thinks of metal as something very hot, but it's something that as landscape architects we deal with a lot, and technology has improved the materials, so we ensure that the materials we use are not hot, they actually will be well calibrated to the tropical environment.
The next question is on coordination, and it says, in developing plans, did you reference Miami's green print for a more sustainable future or the urban tree canopy assessment? Yeah, sure. The question is, in developing plans, did you reference Miami's green print for a more sustainable future or the urban tree canopy assessment?
Yeah, so actually, Miami-Dade County Parks and Recreation, Open Spaces is our partner, and Patrice Gillespie is leading the tree canopy plan, and so we're working very closely with that schedule.
Okay, so this is kind of a long question, so bear with me, but this question says, in the 2015 meeting, we asked for water features and more trees and greenery. The writer doesn't see enough greenery and perhaps too much pavement. They're asking also why the skateboard court is missing and the water feature is missing.
The last part.
Why the skateboard, if I can make it out, skateboard court is missing.
Water features more in skateboard.
Yeah, well, water feature is missing, skateboard is missing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember this is only half a mile of of the area that we're building. And all of those uses will continue to develop as we go through. If you look at the space in particular that we're working with now, the area between Southwest 8 and Southwest 10 is an area where people are coming in all directions. So we actually have placed the skate park there. It would be preventing that multi-directional circulation that actually exists today and will get even stronger as more development happens. So we've been very careful to think about what we requested, but also its proper placement. So we do tell you, we actually spoke about this today, we do want to bring water features as we move further south. We do want to bring the skate park. We're just trying to find the proper location that actually makes sense with the context. In this particular area, there was such a need for areas for outdoor exercise. Basketball court was something that we heard multiple amount of times. Areas where just families are not necessarily coming to a playground or a dog park, but an area where all of these people can come together, that these seem to be the right spaces for Brickell now. However, we do have to plan out there. We do want your feedback, so do tell us what you think of those spaces and what else you would like to see in the space as well.
One other thing I think just in addressing the more green, because I think that is it's a really delicate balance to try and get the right amount to ensure proper safety for pathways and cyclists as well as greenery. And I think, especially in the Brickell backyard, the idea was really that the blue light room, which is, a large portion of that is actually the place where it has the most natural setting. And that's an area where if you do want a sort of more intimate space, more zen space, a place that's really green, that's the space that you can go to. And then the gym, for example, is a much more active place. So the idea is that you do have those two counterpoints even within this half mile.
Wonderful. The next question is on safety. It says, what will be done to make crossings at major intersections, and it gives examples, 7th Street, 8th Street, and 13th Street, as safe as possible?
So it's a twofold strategy. The first one is to ensure that where we do have the path and where we are crossing the intersection, we have a proper crosswalk and alignment with the path. Southwest 7th in particular doesn't have a crosswalk and we're placing the path, neither does Southwest 8. So first and foremost, we're ensuring that we do have those markings on the ground and those crosswalks and the proper signage for other parts of the crossing. The second is to understand what kind of signalization we need the proper type for. Is it a flashing beacon that alerts that pedestrians are crossing? Is it markings on the ground that light up when there's a crossing? Or is it an actual traffic signal? And a lot of this requires a large amount of study because we need to ensure we're not only providing safety for pedestrians and cyclists, but that we're also not negatively affecting the traffic patterns around the area. This is something that takes some time, as you shake in your head. We are currently doing those traffic studies. We have engineers out on the street making the traffic counts, and we're establishing what is that right kind of approach between safety for everyone and also ensuring that we're not negatively affecting the space. So I'm not giving you a straight answer because I don't want to promise something that actually may not work. We are doing our due diligence in ensuring that we're covering all the bases so that when we do propose something that we are very clear will work for everyone. But as always, traffic, safety, and cyclists and safety are correct.
It's fair to say that each of the intersections will be improved. It's just a level of improvement in terms of whether they're signalized or it's just markings on the ground or it's free path alignments. All of those, even the simple things of areas now where you're here and you have to go over there and it's not aligned together, just by aligning the pathways already make it much more safe.
The next question is, to what extent are you working with Fairchild Garden, and when can we expect to see planting plans?
Good question. We have a meeting actually tomorrow morning with them that we're really excited about. We've been working with Brickell all through even the master plan phase. They've been really the advisor looking at working with us to select species that are appropriate, even talking to them about how to procure those species for the future. And my guess is in our next phase of design, which will be our 60% construction document phase, we would start to have specific planting plans.
And that's a great segue to the next question, because That's what is the timing of the construction phases?
Give that question to the English major. Well, we're 30% design documents now. We're racing to 90% design documents in this late spring. And then we'll be putting these plans out to permitting and bidding and permitting. And really pushing hard to try to get a first shovel in the ground by the end of the year. I actually want to say one thing about crosswalks. The three streets that we talked about are all DOT roads. And we are working very closely with DOT on what we can do to make every intersection absolutely the most possible safe condition that we can. We're proposing widening every crosswalk, adding crosswalks where they don't exist. I had to cross 8th Street myself today where there was no crosswalk. And so, we're making it safe for me, my children, and hope everybody else's children are too.
The next question, as written, is how do you control or otherwise deter use by people who, don't belong to the bracket number, like the homeless or criminal elements or.
This is a good question that actually we get all over the world for all the projects we do. And one of the best, I think, deterrents of that is actually activating sites. So the idea of actually having an active, well-used, well-loved place is one of the best strategies to combat that type of use. It is a public space, and people are going to use it. There's a kind of study that goes back to Bryant Park in New York before it was redesigned, where there were homeless people all over the site, and then after it was redesigned and it was active, they said, can you find them now? They're still there. It's just the fact that it's being used by everyone. And so it doesn't become as heightened a space and it feels dangerous. So I think that one of the best things we can do is to create a space that's well loved, that's active, that's used, and part of that is going to be a policy of the city of Miami, how they deal with this in all of their public spaces.
Now, next question is on lighting. It starts with, it says, is lighting truly going to happen all night? And then it asks if we can incorporate Southside Park, or is our incorporate Southside Park question mark, and remove that as divides question mark. So I don't know if we can link those two. And then asks about vegetation near the dining tables.
Lighting questions?
So, in regards to lighting, how our lighting is kind of severe. But yes, lighting will be on all night. However, we're also very conscious that we do have a lot of different uses running the Underline. We have residential spaces, we have commercial spaces. So in lighting the path, as you remember, I showed you on the lighting design, the idea is that we're aiming the light to the public space while ensuring we don't have any light pollution outside that may affect those other residential areas. We're also working with very smart systems for lighting that will have sensors so that late at night we can dim the lights a little bit to still provide safety, but that can be motion activated. So if someone needs to use the space, the lights come back on to the brightest calibration, and we ensure that both that person is safe and that person can be seen throughout so that we ensure there's no surprises.
And that question is about shade on the dining table, which
Vegetation.
yeah, I think as well, and answering it earlier, that we were trying to site that next to large existing trees as much as possible, but it's a fairly confined area.
And then the next question focuses on the Underline running. The writer suggests the run trail should connect with the cell, loopings around the cell and be made of rubber. He suggests adding an narrow, soft surface strip along the pavement throughout the P18. Add too many soccer fields. Add a few off-path bike obstacles, and don't use any exercise machines.
So one, I can answer maybe a few of those. Soccer fields are a great idea, but they don't fit here. We actually have a number of other places on the Underline where wide ends where you can actually have, a soccer field. If you look at the plans, the regulation basketball court is about as wide and big of a field or court that we can get in this particular just for reference, for those of you that can sort of understand the basketball versus soccer size. And then, sorry, now I'm blanking on what the first part was.
Oh, yeah, and besides the run trail, exercise machines.
In terms of servicing, I mean, so rubber surface is something that obviously is very non-cheap. It's also very expensive. I think we're sort of looking at, how we can manage budget, et cetera. But there may be small portions or areas that can potentially allow for that material.
Okay.
I think in particular, we do appreciate your thoughts on these, and those were also parts of the questions in the survey, whether you feel you will use the exercise machine, whether you feel we need to have a longer running track or more pull-up bars, because again, we're trying to assess how we're meeting the best use of the space and ensure that we're calibrating these equipments to what we use.
And as a segue, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Francis Ford from the city of Miami. Commissioner Ford represents this district, District 4, so come on.
Okay. Good evening, how are you? So, I was at an AJC dinner recently where they were giving an award to prominent businessmen in our community. I was telling a story about the former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, and the former Speaker of the Florida House was visiting Israel before the Prime Minister passed, and asked him if you could do your life all over again, what would you do differently? And his answer was, I would dream bigger. I would dream bigger. And so when Meg came to City Hall, and has come so many times to City Hall to explain the Underline, to show the Underline, to share her vision with us, her dream with us, my reaction was, we need to dream bigger. We had a very small funding mechanism. We had a couple of very small funding mechanisms. And we were talking about another potential funding mechanism, which was a bond offering that was pretty controversial in our board. And so I quickly thought of doing something that would generate what hopefully generates and will generate and what's projected to generate the entire amount of money needed to complete the Underline in the city of Miami, $50 million. And so we created a funding mechanism which was to dedicate all the impact fees that are generated 1,000 feet from the metro rail on both sides back into the project. There's a small exception to that, which is a certain segment that's only going to contribute 50% of the impact fees, but that program alone, which was our way of thinking outside the box, has already generated, I think in, 5 months? 5 million? In how long? In 5 months. So at this pace, we'll be at 50 in no time. So what inspires me so much is that, and we have some of my residents who are here, what inspires me so much is residents like that, residents like Meg, who dream bigger and who do not accept mediocrity, and who believe that the city of Miami can be as beautiful as Fort Gables, can be as beautiful as some of the more beautiful cities in our county. And I really want to thank Parker, who's here. I want to thank Meg's husband, who's here to support as well. I want to thank Hans Hertel, who's not here, my wife's brother-in-law, and so many others who have worked tirelessly A city, a world-class city, is defined by its public spaces. I have a 3-year-old son. He's going to be 3 now on February 21st. And today we're deciding what school he's going to spend the next 9 years in of his life. And that's a big decision. This November, we're going to be making another big decision, but we won't get into that. But it will shape, these decisions shape the way your city and your personal life is impacted for many, many years in the future. And so it's imperative that we, as citizens, make decisions to invest in ourselves. Because it is hard. It is hard to do projects like this. It's hard because the land is scarce. We had a property sell not too far from here, a couple of miles away from here. 1 acre, $125 million, 1 acre. Just on the other side of the bridge. So, to be able to repurpose public land and make it transformational and make it visionary is not easy to do. Meg makes it look easy. She's made it look easy because she has this easygoing personality and this incredible smile and this disarming nature. She makes it easy. But the fact of the matter is, she's made me believe, as a public official, that I can dream bigger and that I can be successful doing it. And thanks to her inspiration, we did that in the state of Miami, and my hope and prayer is that my son's lifetime, he can play in that way. Thank you.
Very well said, Commissioner Suarez. And the next question is, has early coordination begun with FDOT, county, and the city on traffic calming measures along the cross streets south of the sky? And if yes, what was discussed? Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Okay, so has early coordination begun with FDOT, county, or the city on traffic calming measures along the cross streets south of the sky? And if yes, what was discussed?
There are actually a study going on now at FDOT for the 8 FDOT streets that cross the future underline adjacent to US 1. And those are actually in the traffic study department at DOT, and we hope to see soon their proposals. That is actually in advance of the underline getting there. So I want to point out that DOT is being very proactive, and we want to make ahead of us because hopefully the traffic interventions occur prior to the trail getting there.
Awesome. That makes the last question, but I've got one more, which is, when and where is the ribbon cut? When and where is the ribbon cut?
Everyone's invited. We're going to have a big party, and that will be announced. We really are shooting for the end of the year, which will put us in the class of the fastest moving project of its scope in the world. So cheers to that.
Field operations backhouse, they can talk about the 6-foot plane.
Sure. So over there on that side of the room, we have a printed plan of our first half a mile of the Underline. And what we want to do is to ask you to tell us what is your favorite place along the Brickell backyard and why. And alongside with the questions that we're asking on the survey, could you let us know what are the spaces that excite you the most and what are the spaces that you would like to also see along the future Underline? Remembering that the Brickell backyard is half a mile or 10 miles, it's really 1/20 of what the whole Underline will be. So there's a lot more opportunities for other spaces and unique programming through the rest of the block.
I think just to clarify, some of you are already writing on there, which is great, but we're in what we call 30% construction documents. We're going to be moving into detailed construction documents. So we really want your feedback on this portion of the project, detailed notes, feedback, so that we can actually help us to inform the design as we progress, as well as the surveys. Thank you.
But to me,